Let me ask you something directly. When was the last time you woke up and felt an unshakable sense that you were moving in the right direction, not because everything in your life was perfect, but because deep down you knew you were living in alignment with something true? If you can't remember, if lately every morning feels like a quiet negotiation between what you should do and what you actually want, then this message is for you. Most men in their 30s and 40s eventually hit a point where their inner compass stops working. You followed the map you were handed. Work hard, build stability, keep people happy. And for a while, it worked. You achieved things, you made progress, you played your role. But somewhere along the way, the direction that once felt clear began to fade. And now there's a silent question that lives at the back of your mind. Is this really it? That question isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that your deeper self is waking up. Jung called this awakening the beginning of individuation, the moment when your life stops being about external achievement and starts being about internal alignment. But before alignment comes confusion. Before clarity comes collapse. You start losing interest in things that used to drive you. Your goals feel mechanical. Your sense of momentum disappears. And instead of being excited about the future, you feel like you're drifting through it. If you're in that place, don't panic. You're not lost. You're being recalibrated. Your psyche is asking you to stop living according to borrowed directions and start discovering your own. And that's exactly what we'll explore in this conversation. 3 Jungian steps to rediscover your life direction when everything feels uncertain. Step 1. Listen to the breakdown before you try to fix it. Every man who feels lost tries the same strategy first. He doubles down on effort. He assumes the problem is laziness or lack of discipline, so he adds more structure, more productivity, more noise. But meaning isn't something you can force into existence. When your inner compass stops pointing north, the first step isn't to move faster. It's to stop and listen. The breakdown of direction is not a malfunction. It's communication. Your unconscious is trying to tell you that the life you built no longer fits the man you've become. The schedule, the relationships, the ambitions. They were designed by an earlier version of you, a younger self who valued security and recognition above authenticity. That self did its job well. It got you here. But now, those same structures have become too tight. They're cutting off circulation to your spirit. If you want to find your direction again, you need to begin by honoring the silence you've been running from. That means allowing yourself to feel the disorientation without rushing to repair it. Sit with the discomfort. Let the emptiness speak. Because beneath the noise of your anxiety, there's always a signal. Faint at first, but unmistakably real. And that signal is the beginning of new orientation. Jung often compared this stage to standing in the middle of a forest after losing the trail. Most people panic and start running, hoping movement itself will bring clarity. But the wise man stops. He steadies his breath. He waits for his eyes to adjust to the darkness, and in that stillness, he starts noticing subtle details, the sound of running water, the direction of wind, the faint path that was invisible before. That's how the psyche works. When you stop forcing answers, the deeper ones begin to appear. So the first step isn't take action, it's make contact. Contact with your fatigue, your boredom, your irritation, your longing. These aren't enemies, they're coordinates. Every emotion that keeps repeating is a compass needle pointing toward something unlived. Listen before you move. Feel before you fix. That's how the lost man becomes oriented again, and that's exactly where the next step begins. If this journey eases something inside you, stay with us. Subscribe, and each step will bring a little more clarity. Thank you. Step 2. Translate the pain into purpose. Once you've stopped running, you'll start noticing a pattern. The same themes keep repeating in your thoughts and emotions. Maybe it's the frustration of being trapped in work that doesn't express who you are. Maybe it's resentment toward a partner because you've buried your own needs for too long. Maybe it's envy toward men who seem freer, braver, more alive. Whatever form it takes, that repetition is the psyche's way of saying, pay attention here. Jung believed that every symptom contains a story. When something hurts, it's because a part of you has been silenced. The man who feels directionless isn't lacking ambition, he's carrying unlived potential. Somewhere along the way he made unconscious agreements. I'll be reliable instead of creative, safe instead of spontaneous, competent instead of curious. Those agreements worked when survival was the priority, but they become cages later in life. The pain you feel when you wake up each morning with a dull sense of not this again is the echo of that unlived potential. It's not a punishment, it's an invitation. If you trace the pain back to its source, you'll find the next direction waiting there. For example, maybe you've spent a decade doing work that makes sense on paper but leaves you numb. Instead of quitting impulsively, ask what that numbness is protecting you from. Perhaps it's fear of failure or the belief that your worth depends on constant achievement. Beneath that fear lies a deeper calling, to create, to lead, to build something that carries your own fingerprint instead of just your competence. The pain points to what's missing, and this is where many men make the mistake of thinking they must blow up their entire life to reclaim meaning. They leave everything behind, convinced that freedom lives somewhere else. But Jung warned that such radical reversals are often just another disguise for avoidance. The goal isn't to run from your current life, but to re-enter it differently, with awareness instead of autopilot, with authenticity instead of adaptation. Start small. Bring honesty into one relationship where you've been pretending. Bring creativity into one part of your work. Bring curiosity into one routine that's gone numb. Direction doesn't appear in one grand vision. It appears as momentum built from truthful moments. And if you've been wondering what your purpose might be, here's something to remember. Purpose is not a destination. It's a byproduct of alignment. The more you align your outer actions with your inner truth, the more direction reveals itself naturally. Before we go further, I want you to take a moment right here. If anything in this conversation has struck a nerve, if you felt that sense of emptiness or quiet confusion in your own life, write about it in the comments. Describe one moment when you realized that the life you were living wasn't entirely yours. You'd be surprised how many men are going through the same transition silently, convinced they're alone. Your story might be the one that helps another man see his own truth. All right. Let's move into the final step, the one that turns awareness into movement. Step 3. Build a dialogue with the self. Once you begin listening and translating your pain into insight, the next step is to build an ongoing relationship with the part of you that knows where to go, the self, as Jung called it. Most men never do this because they've been trained to treat their inner world as weakness. So they keep looking for direction from external authorities, mentors, books, systems, or ideologies. But none of these can replace the compass already within you. The self speaks, but in a language you have to learn over time. It doesn't speak through logic or lists. It speaks through images, dreams, coincidences, intuitive pulls. It reveals itself in the activities that make time disappear and in the ones that drain you instantly. The goal is to begin treating those signals as communication rather than noise. For instance, if you keep feeling a strange resistance before walking into your office every morning, don't shame it. Ask it what it's trying to say. If you feel inexplicably energized when you teach, build, write, or fix something. Take note. That's direction disguised as joy. The self doesn't shout, it whispers. But when you start listening, the entire architecture of your life slowly begins to rearrange itself around what's real. Building a dialogue means giving yourself quiet space every day to check in. 10 minutes without distraction. Ask, what part of me am I ignoring? What feels alive? What feels dead? Over time, you'll start noticing patterns. And once those patterns emerge, decisions become obvious. You won't need to force motivation because your energy will naturally flow toward what's aligned. This is how men regain direction, not by chasing certainty, but by cultivating relationship with their own depth. Jung described it beautifully. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That sentence is the entire map. You're not here to copy someone else's path. You're here to live yours so fully that other men feel permission to do the same. When you combine these 3 stages, listening to the breakdown, translating pain into purpose, and building dialogue with the self, you create a new kind of stability, one that doesn't depend on external validation. You stop living reactively. You stop measuring your worth by comparison. Instead, you move through life with quiet orientation. You may not always know what's next, but you always know what's true. And as you keep practicing this, something shifts. The constant anxiety that you're behind starts fading. The envy toward other men's success dissolves. The noise of social comparison loses power. Because once you reconnect with your own compass, the outer world becomes reference, not authority. This doesn't mean the path becomes easy. It means it becomes yours. There will still be fear, setbacks, and uncertainty, but they no longer define you because you understand what they're doing. They're refining you, sharpening your alignment, deepening your awareness. When a man lives this way, people feel it. He's not chasing, he's anchored. He's not performing, he's present. His confidence isn't loud, but it's unmistakable. That's the quiet authority of someone who has found direction, not in the approval of others, but in communion with his own truth. Men who never confront this stage end up restless for decades. They keep adding more to their life. New projects, new possessions, new relationships, hoping something external will restore that missing spark. But no amount of acquisition compensates for disconnection from the self. The midlife burnout, the quiet drinking, the emotional distance, the endless pursuit of more, all of it comes from forgetting that direction doesn't come from the map. It comes from the traveler. Jung used to say that people don't suffer from lack of meaning. They suffer from lack of relationship with what gives life meaning. And that relationship can only be built by turning inward long enough to hear what's true. You can read all the books in the world, but until you sit in silence with your own confusion and let it reveal what it's hiding, the compass will stay broken. The irony is that the moment you stop demanding an answer, direction starts to return. It comes quietly at first, a new curiosity, a sense of peace about saying no to something that once defined you, a feeling of aliveness while doing something simple and honest. Those small moments are how the self confirms that you're back on track. So what does life look like once you begin living from alignment instead of adaptation? It looks less dramatic and more meaningful. You may still have the same job, the same responsibilities, the same people around you, but your relationship to them changes. You stop seeing work purely as obligation and start seeing it as expression. You stop seeing relationships as duty and start seeing them as opportunities for truth. You stop treating the future as a race and start experiencing it as a dialogue between your choices and your deeper values. Purpose no longer feels like something distant to achieve. It feels like something you bring to every moment. Even mundane days carry a quiet dignity because they're consistent with who you are becoming. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of individuation. Not self-improvement, but self-integration. It's not about becoming a better man. It's about becoming a whole one. And wholeness always gives direction, because when all parts of you are in conversation, the way forward becomes self-evident. If you're hearing this and it feels uncomfortably accurate, I want you to remember something. You're not behind, you're not broken, and you're not the only one going through this. Every man who eventually becomes grounded, wise, and authentic passes through a season of disorientation. That season is sacred. It strips away the false so that the real can emerge. You don't need to figure everything out today. You just need to stay in dialogue with yourself. Keep listening. Keep questioning. Keep removing what no longer feels aligned. Over time, that quiet discipline becomes direction. And as you do, notice how life begins to cooperate with you again. The right people appear. The right opportunities unfold. The right energy returns. It's not coincidence, it's resonance. When you live in truth, reality begins to respond in kind. So if you've been feeling lost, stop treating it like an emergency. Treat it like an initiation. You're not failing, you're evolving. Every collapse of direction is really an opening, an invitation to move from the surface of life to its center. The 3 steps are simple but lifelong. Listen to the breakdown before you try to fix it. Translate your pain into purpose by asking what it's teaching you. Build a dialogue with your deeper self so that you always have guidance, even when logic runs out. If you live this way, you'll never be truly lost again. You might wander, but you'll wander with awareness. You'll make mistakes, but you'll learn from them rather than repeat them. And most importantly, you'll walk through life with the quiet strength of a man who's no longer searching for permission to exist, because he's finally living from truth. Not perfectly, reliably. Begin. If you've stayed with me until now, it means you're searching for something deeper, maybe an answer you've carried since childhood. Don't stop here. Perhaps the next video holds the key you've been waiting for, the piece that helps you untangle another thread of your story.